This week, in the midst of a COVID lockdown, we're bringing you Kia Stonic. Now, if you've been into a Kia showroom anytime in the last 12 months or so, you're going to notice a couple of things. First of all, there's a big division in design between old Kia and new Kia. New Kia is Sorento, Carnival and Seltos, and old Kia is basically everything else. Now, first of all, Stonic is not a new Kia. It's actually a couple of years old, and in fact it's a couple of years away from being replaced. It's already had what Kia calls a product enhancement, or a facelift to you and I. And this GT line is characterised by the Shrayer grille and these really smart LED headlights with LED daytime running lights as well. The GT line has a bit of a smarter look about it, because Kia knows that you put GT in front of something, people are going to think it goes really fast. It's got a smart set of wheels, they differ throughout the range, some nice black mirrors and some silvered roof rails. These just look really quite smart. It's got the shark fin aerial as well at the back, and I always think that makes a car look like it goes faster. It doesn't, but it looks like it. There's a button here for locking and unlocking, so long as the key's in your pocket. But you'll notice that this is kind of that rounded look, the rounded look of the old Kia design. The GT line gets some nice lights, a manual tailgate, and there's plenty of space in here. It goes down all that way. There's some top tether points for the kiddies' seats and the space saver steel spare. One thing I quite like is that there's a hard parcel shelf. Getting in is pretty easy-ish, but space back here with the seat set for me is snug for someone who's 6 foot. You can see my legs are firmly up against the seat in front, and there's really not a lot of space in the back. There were 4 boys. We went away in this car earlier in the year, and look, there was plenty of room because some of us are shorter and they got the back seats. And the seats are covered by this sort of sports fabric. The front seat is much easier to get into. And I do have the seat set a long way back. There's buttons down here on the right hand side, including to turn off that wretched stop start. When you stop at lights, the car switches itself off. That drives me bananas. And here are the cruise control. Now that is not smart cruise control, so you set it and you do have to watch where you're going. And down below are the controls for the active steering and the active lane control. So this will warn you when you're going out of the lane and steer you back into the lane, but it'll also keep you centered. You can see that the dash is just some conventional dials and a large multifunction display in the middle, which you can scroll through with this key. I always have it set on Speedo. The center console, again, fairly simple. I've had my Apple CarPlay connected. Air conditioning controls, it's a single zone and it is manual. There's Smart Start and an 8-inch display. I quite like the way Kia has these set up. I don't know why you can have the sounds of nature, but if you want, you can have a rainy day, or an open air cafe, or a warm fireplace if you're feeling particularly cold in winter. There's a snowy village and a lively forest. Personally, I'd prefer car motion waves if I must have anything at all. There are some large buttons down the bottom, just in case you feel like having the maps displayed. There's also inbuilt navigation. And for the radio, as you can see, there's AM, FM and DAB. And one thing I like about Kia is that it is particularly easy to program your favourites. You just run down the side and press and hold star if you want to add it to your favourites line. As you can see, I've got some classic stations and some modern stations already programmed. And you can program anything you like on Kia's star button, be it a radio station or maybe your home address. The rest of the cabin feels quite nice, although as I said, the plastic is quite hard. Centre vents are well laid out, and there's a rather smart carbon fibre-like effect on the dash fascia. The other thing is, the sound from the sound system is extremely good. I'd play it for you, but of course, YouTube will have a fit. When doing this seatbelt up, there's not a whole lot of space between the center console and the seat, but it's also because I'm fat and old. But you know, hey ho. The other thing is, when you start this Stonic, it always starts in eco mode. I was just talking to Kia, who told me why that is. And apparently it is because that was the way Europe wanted it. There you go. And if they were to change it for Australia, it would have cost too much money. I'm going to press and hold the lane control button so that on this twisty road, I'm steering myself, because it really annoys me. And I found that by not doing that recently, things went a little bit wrong. The 1.4 litre non-turbo engine does quite a good job, but it gets a little bit breathless. This 1 litre turbo is much nicer. That little bit of extra torque, even though there's the same power as the non-turbo model, makes all the difference, especially when you accelerate, which we'll be doing in a minute. The steering feels light, very light. Now, unusually, this car has been tuned by Graham Gamble, but not to Graham's normal, quite firm, sporty standards. He's opted instead for a more luxurious ride. And this does feel luxurious. Not only that, the cabin is extremely quiet, and we'll see that when we get onto the highway in a minute. I don't think I'd really want to push Stonic too hard down these corners. Nonetheless, it is fun. This is a fun entry car aimed at young couples, or even a single, or perhaps an older person who wants to downsize. Now, I mentioned that there are a couple of things missing: blind spot monitoring and smart cruise control. Both of those were not included, and they're not available anywhere else either. Nonetheless, the top model, which hasn't yet been safety rated, is expected to get a 5-star rating. Other Stonics have a 5-star rating already. This is going to be crash tested in Korea to European standards. Be interesting. It's no powerhouse. 74 kilowatts definitely feels like 74 kilowatts. That's not a bad thing, it's not even a criticism, it's just a fact of life. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't pick up its skirts and get moving, and it gets to 110 quite quickly. But it just sounds like it's going to do nothing at all. Alright, I've now set my auto steering and my active lane control. I'm really just sitting here cruising along now, up a hill, in cruise control, with this little entry-level Kia doing everything for me. Doesn't feel quite right somehow. It's kicked down a bit because, as I said, I've got it in sports mode. And the gearbox has responded accordingly. But you do definitely have to take it out of eco mode. The other thing I want to mention is, along with the two engine choices, there's a 6-speed automatic and a 6-speed manual in the lower models, and this 7-speed DCT in the top model. The DCT is incredibly smooth, though in eco mode it is utterly dim-witted. Kia's 7-year warranty was the first in Australia, and it's the only one that's permanent, and has been permanent since Damien Meredith took over. Fuel consumption is sitting at 6 litres per 100 kilometres, and so far this covered, since I reset this, has covered 80 kilometres. There's voice control too, though I never ever use voice control, and if I do want to, I'll just say something like, "Hey Siri, what's the time?"
It's 3:42 p.m.
Now you can do the same thing for any function that you can normally use Siri for. So you might be able to get it to find you a petrol station, or ask you how long it'll be till you get home or set your home address. You can do it without touching a single button. So, to wrap up, we're still a couple of years away, at least, from Stonic being replaced. It's reasonably economical. It is fun to drive. You just saw in the Benz then, it was doing everything I asked of it. It isn't the most powerful Kia in the world, but it is incredibly comfortable, and on a long trip, you can keep very much well entertained. That's all for Kia Stonic. I quite like this little girl very much. It's an entry-level car, and so you can't expect super luxury, but like all Kias, it is crammed to the gunnels with stuff, especially for the price. As always, if you've liked the film, hit like, leave a comment, and just over here to subscribe.